So all of us, like all of you, are still reeling at the news that a Muslim family was killed in a hit and run in London, Ontario on Sunday. Police say there's evidence that this was a planned, premeditated act and was because the family was targeted because of their faith. So the 20-year-old male suspect is facing murder charges. And this, we're starting with this idea of when we're processing tragedy, how important is it to identify the motive and the background of the killer?
It's a great question, Cynthia. I want to go right away to Marilyn on Facebook because she writes to us, it glorifies him. Let the law take its course without added publicity. All of us can find out the result, but more attention should be given to the victims and the Muslim community for better understanding. And Marilyn, I think a lot of people would agree with you that why make him the focus of the story when really everybody rightly should be rallying around the absolute loss and tragedy in this family. I think I can probably speak for all of us when not only do we think about their devastating loss, but also the young boy who was the lone survivor of that attack. It's heartbreaking. And I think rightly we need to be showing love and support to this family, to the Islamic community as a whole. So I don't disagree with you, Marilyn. Where we maybe differ in view slightly is that this event, as police have described, was targeted as a result of the religion being practiced by the family that was killed. And so why that matters, at least to me, is that these are becoming they're increasing in number, not decreasing. In the last 5 years, when you have, let's call this what it is, a mass murder attack, they're increasing in terms of motivation regarding race, religion, and gender in particular. So what I do believe is that culturally there is something happening, I think, that we all have to be aware of and also be responsible for, in the sense of identifying what is happening in my community. Is this happening in my community? What are ways that I can help? And so for that reason, I would say we do need to, at some point and in the right timing, which is not now, focus on what was the motivation behind this and why, to prevent another tragedy. That's the hope.
It is very human, though, to ask why, and I understand that message that you read, Mal, and I get it. You don't want to glorify a person. But, why is one of the foundational questions that human beings ask, and almost the worst thing is not knowing an answer. And then there are people like me who, my connection to it is I went to school in London. I taught in London for a year. I've spent a lot of time there. And so this is a community that, as we're hearing in news reports, there are many, I think it's the second largest community in London, the Muslim community. And so, you know a place, or you think you know a place, it's shocking to you, and you do want to see a name. And then when the name comes out, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person who wanted to know more. Like, where did he go to school? Is there a connection? How did he do this? And I think that combined with the very human wanting of knowing why this is a tricky thing, as you mentioned, Melissa, and finding out more information and what that information does for us. The family of the victims released a statement, and even in that statement, they wrote that this young man was influenced by a group. And so is that group, active in the London community? Are they active in other communities? So to your point, Melissa, about knowing more information and how to stop it and what to do and how to address it, those are the things that are going through a lot of people's minds as we process this and try and find a way to stop the next one.
I will say police haven't said that. If wherever that statement came from, that's not
right.
That
came from the family in their statement.
Came from the family.
Lainey, I think I had the same impulse as you. Is that one of my first reactions was to look up this murderer's name on Twitter to see if I could find some sort of record, I suppose, to connect the dots to make sense of this senselessness, which you can't do it, but you wanted to sort of find out what sort of deep, dark parts of the interweb he was on. What was he retweeting to sort of weed out and find the source, I guess. But that's impossible, of course, to find. There isn't one single source. But I totally understand what you're saying. This these murders rather happened a couple kilometers from where my mom lives, and this guy was arrested at Cherry Hill Mall, which is where my mom goes once a week, or did before COVID times, to meet up with her coffee group. There is this impulse of wanting to find out everything about him so that you can find out if there are others like him. I can't imagine how the Muslim community in London is feeling right now, but I'm sure top of that list might be fear, like that this could potentially, there are other people like this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, my feelings are, you know, I echo everything you've said. Of course, I can't stop thinking about this little boy who isn't much older than my own son. And of course, you know, I want to just make a note of the fact that the first person who wrote in mentioned the focus should be on the family, and that is correct. But there was a kind of social media snafu that happened yesterday, which was that there was a photo that was being circulated of the family against the family's wishes for a while. So it's again a reminder of how quickly, when stories like this happen, we all want to kind of reach out and make sense and understand in many, many different ways. And some of those are you know, in this kind of very immediate world can be, you know, problematic. And to go back to the person, you're 100% right, Lainey, and Mel and Jess, we're just trying to make sense of this. I think back to about the van attack that happened in Toronto, and we all kind of, you know, did immediate research and eventually found out that this is a person who is a deep misogynist. The same thing goes with the Montreal massacre. We understand that there was sort of, you know, you kind of are like, oh, well, there's a motive. And then when the horrible attacks happened in Nova Scotia, you know, a little over a year ago, we still don't have any understanding about the motive there. And I'm not sure, though, knowing the motive makes the tragedy any less painful. I think we do it just because we're trying to, as you said, make sense of something in the hopes that if we have this deeper understanding, we will then take measures and be able to prevent future tragedies. But I don't know,
Cynthia,
that those
that's
things
exactly
always add
what-
up.
Maybe we have.
I think that's
Maybe
really-
we have. I'd like to hear from police, because there is more and more evidence of a profile of a mass murder. This person has only been charged. They have not been convicted. Let me make that clear. But there is a very clear profile, whether you're looking at mass murders, which is considered the death of 4 or more people. In Canada and the United States especially, they have done deep dives into profiles of what these people look like. They are by and large male. They are by and large white. They are by and large between the ages of 20 and 40. They are by and large having some kind of childhood trauma. And more, increasingly, it is coming out in the form of misogyny, racism, homophobia, Islamophobia, xenophobia. So we do have a profile. And that, to me, I'd love to hear from law enforcement to say, how many people have they been tracking and were able to prevent an attack? Because preventing at least one, to me, would be huge.
Nikki on
appreciate
Twitter
how they-
agrees with you, Mel. She wrote, I think if we know more about the suspects, perhaps parents, brothers, and sisters can look for these signs in their own family members and try and prevent something similar from happening. And it is true, like it feels like we're looking for this root cause, because the alternative, that evil and this level of hatred exists, is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, but I understand why there are concerns, because, you know, the more you find out about somebody, what is also natural is that you humanize them, right? And that has been those have been the conversations we've had in the past with, unfortunately, so many other situations where the killers are humanized, and that humanity is clearly not offered to victims often enough. And so there is a fine line. So I actually do appreciate that the information has been limited but clear. The authorities swiftly said that these victims were targeted because of their faith. That was on behalf of the police. They said that. So they made that clear without giving much more information about this person. So to not, you know, get too close to humanizing somebody who, you know, it can be a complicated discussion.
Do you mean humanize, or do you mean empathizing? Because I think that's an important distinction. I agree with you 100%.
Well, here's
that
the
we don't need
distinction,
to
Cynthia.
empathize.
Like, my comparison would be what happened at Atlanta, when the killer targeted Asian businesses, and 6 of the 8 victims were Asian. You remember we talked about it on the show. The police said the guy was having a bad day, right? And that kind of statement humanizes the killer. And it was very insulting to everybody, but especially the victims and their family and an entire community. So that is the line I'm trying to draw, and that a lot of people are trying to be much more sensitive of, it seems like, at this stage.